This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. As I always say, another important show. I want you to get the real facts. I want you to get the facts of life with regard to what's going on in Washington, D.C., the capital of corruption, otherwise known as the swamp, with regard to the impeachment and now impeachment trial of President Donald J. Trump. There are some very concerning aspects of this. It's not a done deal that the president is going to be acquitted. And perhaps the biggest problem is the fact that the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, John Roberts, who's a closet liberal, and perhaps closet in other respects as well, I might add. I'm not a homophobe, but this may be why he's been blackmailed all these years with regard to Obamacare and everything else. We don't know the reason why he flipped at the 12th hour. But more troubling is the fact that Roberts has locked horns with the president before. It occurred with regard to a ruling by a judge by the name of John Tiger in San Francisco that enjoined the president's asylum policy on illegal immigration. John Tiger is the son of Michael Tiger, who is a admitted and proud Marxist, communist, anti-capitalist, and someone who I have locked horns with in a D.C. bar disciplinary proceeding where he made a recommendation that I be suspended for 33 months. Of course, that's subject to appeal. There's 2 layers of appeal, and I'm confident of success in the end. But let me tell you about Michael Tiger. Michael Tiger was supposed to be the first clerk of William Brennan, a liberal Supreme Court justice. J. Edgar Hoover, and in fact, then Chief Justice Earl Warren had to intervene to have him fired because of his subversive activities. He also has represented a number of far-left people who have, in effect, called for the overthrow of the United States, like Saul Alinsky, like Angela Davis, like Bernardine Dohrn. In fact, Dohrn, in a recent book that Tiger wrote, endorses it, as well as Angela Davis, but Dohrn compliments Tiger for his anti-capitalist approach to things, his book, his philosophy, and the fact that it's, harmed humanity, so to speak. So this is the son of Michael Tiger. He's a chip off the old block, John Tiger, and the president commented at the time, which was quite legitimate, the Obama judge has enjoined my immigration policies, no surprise. Well, what happened then? Chief Justice John Roberts, who's not the most honest person in the world, to put it bluntly, went back at the president, shot back at the president. He says, we don't have Obama judges. We don't have Clinton judges. We don't have George Bush judges. Our judges are all independent. They decide things on the merits. Well, we know that that isn't the case, particularly in the federal system. And this is also the John Roberts who flipped on Obamacare at the 12th hour. We wonder why. And that's why I raise these issues, because I'm not homophobic. But what do they have on Roberts? What he's afraid of? How can they perhaps blackmail him now? I know from sources that Roberts was illegally surveilled by the NSA, by the CIA, and by the FBI in all likelihood. So this is what's scary about having him sit on top of this impeachment proceeding. Frankly, he is not a credit to the Supreme Court. I hope someday he gets impeached. He tries to play both sides of the fence. He's ultra political. And what we have now is a situation where the Supreme Court has the ability, this justice of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, to dismiss these charges against the president. They're not valid. There was no quid pro quo that went into effect. The president is the head of the executive branch. He's technically the head of the Justice Department. He can order an investigation. He can't obviously tell people to be indicted, at the Justice Department. He should not give his opinion on whether they should be indicted or not, but he can order investigations, and he can do the same thing with foreign leaders, where they have access to information. Now, why did the president intervene with the president of the Ukraine? Because we have worthless attorney generals. We went over that in our last show. Not only did we have Jeff Sessions, but now we have Bill Barr, who's a tool of the establishment, who, as I talked about last week, has taken a dive with regard to the prosecution of James Comey, the prosecution of Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, who has taken a dive with regard to every aspect of what's been going on in the last several years. It's only your Freedom Watch that stands up for you as your Justice Department that brings citizens' grand juries, hard-hitting cases, and takes these people on. Of course, we're facing a lot of politicized federal judges, but we'll break through in the end. And our citizens' grand juries depend on what we do ourselves as the American people, not what these corrupt judges will say, many of them when you get into court. There are some good judges in this country. They're in the minority when it comes to political matters. You might get a fair decision if two parties are equal and there's no political aspect to it. But generally speaking, you won't in the federal courts when it comes to matters involving politics or government or whatever. These judges are establishment creatures. So they protect each other. They circle the wagons. It's the buddy system in the federal judiciary. How did they get their jobs? Through political patronage. So that's why I am frightened for the president to have Roberts sit on top of this impeachment proceeding. And if, in fact, it comes down to a vote as to whether 2/3 vote to convict and you're one short, Roberts has the ability to vote under the Constitution. He will probably vote against the president. I think that the legal team of the president should remove to have him disqualified from this case based on his prejudicial remarks with regard to the president before. And also, frankly, lying to the American people that federal judges are not influenced by politics. Even Michael Tiger in his book says that. He says you have to take into account the backgrounds of judges and jurors in litigating a case. So, this is what's so absurd about what's going on. Now, layer this on top of the fact that the president just this morning announced that his lawyers, among them, are going to be Ken Starr and Robert Ray. Now, I have no problem in having Dershowitz in there. Okay, that is fine. He actually has some expertise and he's got some guts. NBC, of course, tried to smear Dershowitz, Starr, and Ray this morning. You can look at the article. I'll get it up on our website at freedomwatchusa.org on things that they have done in the past. Dershowitz representing Jeffrey Epstein, Starr as well, by the way. And, Ray, of course, being involved in independent counsel proceedings during the Clinton years. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up as usual. But there are not two biggest losers as legal advocates than Ken Starr and Robert Ray. They took a dive during the Clinton years. They could have prosecuted both Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. They took an exit stage left. They're establishment people. And when push comes to shove, they're not going to stand up as strong as the president needs in this impeachment proceeding because they want to be part of the Washington, D.C. swamp, the Washington, D.C. club. Now, you do have Pam Bundy in there, former attorney general from Florida. She may show some guts. And, of course, Dershowitz will. And then you've got Jay Sekulow, who's organizing this. Jay's a nice guy, but he has no real criminal defense experience. And, of course, that impeachment, while it is political, they're alleging that the president committed high crimes and misdemeanors. But I like Jay, and I'm not criticizing the president for having him on the team. It is notable that Giuliani is not on the team because Giuliani is the one who got the president in this hot water with regard to the Ukraine, and he's under investigation right now, as well as his associate who was indicted, Len Pernius, who's ready to testify against the president. It's a nightmare. You've got Republican senators out there that frankly would like to lynch the president. Everybody from Mitt Romney to Susan Collins to Linda Murkowski and others. So don't be so sure that this case is not going to end badly in terms of the impeachment trial. But if you had a Chief Justice that would exercise his authority, because in a criminal proceeding, and this is in effect a quasi-criminal proceeding, He has the right to take preliminary evidence, a preliminary hearing, and dismiss the matter before it goes too far. Now, what do the Democrats want to do? They want to bring in witnesses, some of them including Parnius, who wants to turn state's evidence so he can get a good deal with his indictment to lynch the president. Well, you know what? Senator Ted Cruz had a good suggestion if it goes to witnesses. He says, okay, let's have reciprocal witnesses. We'll bring in Hunter Biden. He didn't say we should bring in Joe Biden, but he should be brought in too. And then you can have your witnesses. You can have John Bolton, who allegedly is going to testify against the president and others. But this is why this is a very fluid proceeding. And the best way to end it right now is to have someone presiding over this trial that can consider a dismissal and just get rid of it. And that's the end of it. Otherwise, we're going to have weeks of a dog and pony show, which serves nobody's interest, certainly not the president's, not the people of the United States that elected the president. It serves the interests of stations like Fox News, cable stations that are making money hand over fist over this in terms of advertising dollars and ratings, MSNBC, CNN, and the rest of the lot, who frankly, none of them can you believe anything that comes out of their mouth. And in the case of Fox News, they play both sides of the street. They've been promoting Napolitano that wants to see the president impeached, who's on their network. They've been promoting Chris Wallace. It's unbelievable. So this is the, you know what kind of show, the shift show, you know, as we say. The one thing I agree with Hannity is the use of the word shift show. And this is what we're dealing with. So we will keep you apprised of what's going on. But for Freedom Watch's point of view, we're bringing our citizens' grand juries. We're going to hold Pelosi, Schumer, Nadler, Schiff, the whole lot of them accountable because they have obstructed justice, they have violated the Constitution, and they themselves should be indicted, tried, convicted, and sentenced. Watch what we do. I'm going to be right back. The second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. And we're going to be talking about another outrage concerning the Bundys. I'll be right back. Until then, go to our website and see what we're doing and join our Justice League at freedomwatchusa.org.
Fearless.
He's claiming he's crazy, he's racist, he's out to kill the Democrats.
Dangerous.
He don't care, he uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad,
Special Prosecutor
very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Let's talk about what's happening to Cliven Bundy, his sons, and his very brave family. They were subject to a political persecution as well as a prosecution by Barack Obama, simply because Cliven Bundy, you can go to his website, our legal defense website at clivenbundydefensefund.org, clivenbundydefensefund.org. That's a private case I'm handling for him. You can contribute to his defense. It's very important for your defense of this country to support him. Is that Cliven made a reference after the standoff with the government ended, and we'll talk about that a little bit just to refresh your recollection if you need it, that he was treated like the Negro in the Old South. Obama took offense to that. You know, Martin Luther King used the word Negro to refer to himself, but it became politically incorrect over time, not because Negro is not a correct word. The NAACP uses that word. Others use that word, but Obama took offense. You'll see it at clivenbundydefensefund.org and actually warned Cliven, in effect, that he could be prosecuted because Obama believed that everybody was a racist. I mean, at that point. I mean, this was his thing. He's created this racial division, and we live by it today. You know, my Zimmerman case, I don't want racial division. I want harmony. I have African-American clients. Alan Keyes perhaps will be on this show. We don't know. We're having difficulty connecting. He would have been the greatest president, in my opinion, in modern history. Certainly is the brightest. Demetric Penny, others. Okay, so I'm a civil rights lawyer in effect, but that's what Cliven was prosecuted for. And he stood up for his rights as well as peaceful protesters who exercised their Second Amendment rights. When the Obama administration came in and tried to take his cattle away, take his land away, and in fact, because it was all done and orchestrated by Harry Reid, that evil senator from Nevada. He's no longer senator, but he's still like the Wizard of Oz pulling strings behind the curtains. And Reed, it was reported, was trying to sell the land out from under the Bundys. Of course, the federal government claims it's their land. He obviously would have gotten kickbacks. He was going to try to sell it to Chinese environmental interests. And Bundy stood in his way. Bundy's a very righteous, religious man. He believes in the Constitution. Under his religion, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, the Constitution is incorporated into the Book of Mormons, and he felt this was unconstitutional. He stood his ground. He was willing to take the consequences. His sister Margaret was thrown to the ground, assaulted by FBI and BLM agents. His sons were tased. His cattle were killed, buried in a secret mass grave. It was the biggest example of modern American tyranny. And Bundy stood up for his rights, much like our founding fathers stood up for their rights. He was not armed, neither were his sons. But yet he was indicted for allegedly threatening federal witnesses. Well, what happened? In the course of the trial, we caught the so-called government's witnesses lying. We caught the prosecutors, the U.S. Attorney in Nevada, lying to the court. We caught them hiding exculpatory evidence that could acquit the Bundys, and a whistleblower came forward by the name of Larry Wooten, who said there was a kill list on the heads of the Bundys at the Bureau of Land Management. The Trump Justice Department, under the U.S. Attorney's Office in Nevada, Maine Justice didn't want to play a role. They let the U.S. Attorney's Office file an appeal because they're trying to cover their rear end because they've committed crimes, frankly, and they're hoping the Ninth Circuit bails them out. That appeal's going forward. An oral argument's been set for March 23rd in Las Vegas, Nevada, before the Ninth Circuit. I hope you'll come and attend and watch what's going on, but we have a strong defense for Cliven Bundy. We're confident of success, but we need the resources to pull it off. So go to ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org, contribute to Cliven, because this government tyranny is exactly what King George III was doing in the days leading up to our revolution. It's almost worse today. And who's allowing this to happen? The Trump Justice Department. Not because the president supports it, but there's a deep state there run by leftists. The Attorney General, again, Bill Barr, is seen and not heard. He's an absolute disgrace as Attorney General. He's no better than Jeff Sessions. So please go and support that case. And we also have other cases for Cliven Bundy where we're seeking to have the land declared belong to the people of Nevada, not the federal government. It's not their land. It belongs to the state of Nevada, and the federal government has no right to even be on that land. And we have pushback. We have malicious prosecution lawsuits against the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the individual prosecutors. So please go and support that case. Now, I'm going to be right back with the third segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, and we're going to get into why this country was founded, what we need to do to clean it up, and we better do it fast because we're heading down the drain very quickly, and we may not even have a president in 2 to 3 weeks. So listen intently. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
Now, fellow patriots, friends, supporters of Freedom Watch, Larry Klayman, what I do, what others do. Of course, there is no one else that does what I do. If I may scratch my own back and toot my own horn, there is no lawyer in this country today that will stand up to the extent I will consistently for the vision of our founding fathers for this government, who will risk what he does for you. I've never been a lawyer who put my interests ahead of my client's interests. I've never been a lawyer who put my interests ahead of the country's interests. 99.9% of all lawyers will put their interests ahead of their clients' interests. I even go through that myself when I have lawyers represent me, such as in this PAR proceeding with Michael Tiger. They could make a stronger defense. Obviously, I'm confident of winning in the end, but they're worried about whether or not they're going to have blowback if they take strong positions with the District of Columbia Bar Disciplinary Council and its ad hoc committees, particularly with regard to Michael Tiger. So, this is a good example. It was Joseph Farah who said, they did a piece that In fact, really nailed it in a way. It was a time that the Washington Post actually had some integrity. There was a reporter by the name of David Montgomery who did a profile about me, Larry Klayman versus everyone. Of course, now I have a podcast called Larry Klayman for Everyone, and we're going to have a podcast on Radio America, too. We're going to do 10 minutes a day and give you an update, and that's going to be very important. I want you to listen to it. Education is important, and I'm going to get into that. But this is the kind of thing that you need to understand, is that I don't do things because I'm trying to protect my backside. I do things because, and I go for the fences, I swing for the fences, because this country is in dire shape. And in that profile that was done for David Montgomery, he asked Joseph Farah of WorldNet Daily. I write a column for WorldNet Daily every week. I'm going to write one this week, too. I hope you'll read it at freedomwatchusa.org. You can go to WND.com and read it. I've compiled it into a 4-volume work, Essays of a Madman. And, with a contribution over $150, I'll send it to you for free. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. But Joseph Farah said, he hit the nail on the head. He said, the one thing about Larry Klayman is that he does not do things always that are in his self-interest. Okay, and that's what's important, is that our founding fathers did not do things that were in their self-interest. In fact, just read the Declaration of Independence. I think the greatest and most emotional document ever written short of the Bible, the Old and the New Testament. And it says there that we pledge our lives, we risk our fortunes and our lives to form a new nation. These were very wealthy people. I'm just paraphrasing. They were all landowners. They were extremely affluent, and they risked it all for a new nation. They risked it all to create a nation, one nation under God, through divine providence. Over the holidays, I was reading a book, and I recommend it to you. Let me get it right now, and I'll read you the title. In the Words of Our Founding Fathers, Volume 1 by Tullius, Tullius. Now, I don't even know who Tullius is, but he compiled the writings of our founding fathers. And when you read these writings, it's clear that what played the major role in our becoming a free nation was the teachings of our founding fathers and others. People like John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, who spoke to the American people and explained to them why they needed to be free. And it was written in such a high way, in other words, not a high way, but in a very scholarly way, that most people probably can't understand at these days what they were writing. These were philosophers, they were scholars, they were lawyers, they were scientists. And that's what's really sad, because our culture has become so dumbed down, with text messaging and the millennials. I often joke that my dog Beverly, has a bigger word vocabulary than a lot of millennials. I mean, their word vocabulary uses the word like every 3 words. You can't even figure out what they're saying anymore. My generation used the word That wasn't so great either. And we need to educate. And that's what we do here at Radio America, and that's what I do in the columns that I write. That's what I do when I appear on television. I was on this week. I'm going to put it up on our website. It already is, I believe, on Sinclair, which is much more conservative than Fox News. Fox is going left, and we talked about the impeachment proceeding, is that we need to educate. We got to get back to the basics. So I urge you to get a hold of this book or get the Federalist Papers, read that, or read de Tocqueville's Democracy in America. Get back to our roots. See where it is that we were going and where we need to go continuously, because we have lost track. It's not just that most of them are evil in both political parties. They're in it for themselves. They're in it to stuff money into their pockets. They're in it for power. They're in it for prestige. They prance around, in $3,000 to $5,000 Italian suits. You wonder how they can afford that on a government salary. Well, some of them are independently wealthy, but many of them, I'm sure, are taking money under the table from lobbyists and everybody else, and they've been caught, But the FBI doesn't look hard enough because they're worried about retaliation. FBI doesn't do much of anything these days when it comes to those kinds of matters. You and me, we can be held accountable by the FBI and the Justice Department, but not the elite, powerful, beautiful people of Washington, D.C., and we talked about that. This is what we need to do. We need to educate. And what we've got right now, are a bunch of political hacks on Capitol Hill that are carrying on You have serious issues out there with Iran, with North Korea, with immigration, with a whole host of things. And this is what we're doing. We're playing patty cakes on Capitol Hill, trying to remove the president that we voted for. That will be a coup d'etat if it succeeds. And then, of course, you've got the executive branch, which is infested with deep state leftists who want to destroy the president as well. Just this week, the General Accounting Office issued a decision that the president violated the law with regard to what he did with Iran and what he did in other matters. What he did with regard to, in particular, the Ukraine. And this was designed to create evidence to use in the impeachment trial. So here you have an agency of the president's executive branch trying to get him impeached and convicted. It's unbelievable, unbelievable. And this is what we're dealing with. So that's the executive branch. And of course, you can see Bill Barr, Attorney General, before that Jeff Sessions, taking a dive, not bringing about justice for their buddies in Washington, D.C. Doesn't matter what political persuasion they are. They're nowhere to be found because you know what? Given the mass surveillance, there's dirt on everybody, and that'll be used if they push too hard. Then you've got the courts, and we've talked about that, the politicized judges who generally get on the bench because of political contributions by their law firms, labor unions, corporations, special interests, whatever. We do not have the best and the brightest on the federal bench. There are some that got through by accident I have encountered maybe 3 to 5 in my entire 42-year legal career that had the guts to take actions that needed to be taken. I say it as of this time, the only one I can remember and as a federal judge that had the guts to stand up to it is Stanley Sporkin, and he's retired. Even Judge Lamberth has taken dives. And, and I love the guy, and he's a friend, but even he, gets weak-kneed. He never held Hillary Clinton accountable in the Filegate case and the other cases, and most recently, he wouldn't hold the media accountable when they defamed Sheriff Joe Arpaio. I refiled the case. We'll see now if he stiffens up again, and we'll entertain that. I mean, he's the best of what's out there, but what's out there is not very good. And the Trump judges, I'm holding out hope for a few of them that I have cases in front of, but there's establishment creatures who are scared like Puxatawny Phil to come out of their hole on Groundhog's Day. Because if they do, they know they'll get their heads chopped off by the establishment, and they will not be able to advance in their career with regard to going to a higher court or another appointment or God knows what. And then, of course, we have the leftist media. And look at this NBC story. I mean, get it up there. Look at the hit job they're doing on the lawyers that the president has chosen. Now, granted, I don't think he should have Starr. I don't think he should have Bob Ray, former independent counsels that took a dive during the Clinton era. But just the viciousness of this is unbelievable. And we see what goes on every single day with the left-wing media. And then, of course, we have Fox News on the other side that's promising justice to boost its ratings and ad dollars, and they're not telling you the truth either. And then Fox News, which is owned and run by Lachlan Murdoch, is allowing Napolitano to go on a jihad every day and promoting it to get the president impeached and convicted, as well as Chris Wallace, as well as Juan Williams, as well as others. Now, it's one thing to have a divergence of views. Napolitano's not honest. He's mad because the president wouldn't make him a Supreme Court justice, so he's taking it out on the president. Chris Wallace, frankly, is a vile leftist. He's slippery. He's slimy. And Juan Williams just says what he has to say. As Roger Ailes once told me, if I'm going to have a leftist on Fox News, I'm going to have the dumbest guy I can find. Actually, he used the F word. Okay. Juan, unfortunately, is not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Ironically, he criticizes the president, but he was thrown off of the Washington Post years ago for alleged sexual harassment. I don't know whether he did it. I don't think he needs to be condemned for it. But you know what? He's not holier than thou, and he's not pure. And there are others, like Arthel Neville, who hates the president. Watch daytime Fox. It's completely different than primetime. I don't like a station, a network that tries to play both sides of the street in a dishonest way. I'll tell you something. In some ways, there's more integrity on CNN and MSNBC because you know who they are. You know where they're coming from, and you can address it. But Fox has little to no integrity, and that's why I hope that Sinclair gets into the cable business. Right now, they're on 178 networks, stations that they own. They own the sports networks, the Tennis Channel. They bought the sports networks from Fox. You know, at least you can talk clearly when you go on there. I've been blackballed from Fox, and so have some of our clients, like Joe Arpaio, Judge Roy Moore, like Laura Loomer, because we actually try to tell the truth. They don't want the truth. They just want to boost advertising dollars. But let's get back to the vision of our founding fathers. What were they trying to accomplish? The laws of King George III were very unjust. He made laws by edict. His yes men judges, similar to many of the federal judges we have today, rubber stamped what he wanted to be done. He took the criminal justice system back to the Court of St. James in England, and the colonies were prevented from defending themselves. He tried to seize our weapons, succeeded to a large extent. He overtaxed the American people. Now, in those days, and go back and read about it, the colonies were so rich that they were supporting the British Empire, all the other colonies. So, of course, we wanted representation, no taxation without representation, because we were being financially raped by King George III. They were taking away the fruits of our hard labor. And that's why our founding fathers were capitalists. They believed in preserving private property, just like the Bundy's property, which they should be allowed to ranch without government trying to take it away from them. That's what King George III was trying to do. And the founding fathers wrote about natural law, the law that was given to us by God. All of the founding fathers, the major ones, they actually wanted as the symbol of the United States, Moses crossing the Red Sea and the Egyptians trying to kill them with a chariot. That was the symbol, because our country was based on Hebraic Judeo law, which later became Christian law as well. And that's what the founding fathers were trying to do, not these unjust laws that these hacks on Capitol Hill enact, or seeking to enforce edicts to destroy people. And that is why we have so much at stake now, because now they're trying to destroy our duly elected president. And if he goes down, look what's behind it. Bernie Schwartz, I'm a Jewish Christian, so I don't mean this in an anti-Semitic way. This is a vile human being. He's a self-hating Jew who is supported by people like Ilham Omar, like Rashida Tlaib, like Linda Sarsour. He hates his own people. He's a communist. He wanted to do his honeymoon in Moscow. In fact, he did. And then you've got the others. I mean, what a bunch of hacks. This is what we're going to get. And that's why the Democrats, whether they succeed in conviction or not, are trying to wound the president and misrepresent things and do a complete circus to defeat him. Now, I don't advocate who to vote for. I advocate justice. As the head of a public interest group, I don't tell you who to vote for in terms of Freedom Watch. I can say personally, but I don't do that. But I can bring about justice. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. We are your Justice Department. freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to our cause. Join our Justice League. Contribute to the Clive and Bundy Defense Fund.org, because we need you, as we said during World War II. Uncle Sam. I'll be right back.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now the verdict, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, because you are the jury. You're the decision makers. This is what I take issue with the federal judges. They're taking more and more cases away from the jury and making decisions on their own based on a false understanding of a case called Bell Atlantic versus Twombly, which says they can dismiss cases if they don't consider it to be plausible. Well, who the heck are they to decide what's plausible or not? Our founding fathers, realizing that King George III was making decisions, issuing rulings and edicts with his yes men judges, said, no, we want the people to decide cases, not the judges. The judges are corrupt. The judges are the tool of the king. And that's what these federal judges have by and large become. They are the tool of the Washington establishment, of the swamp. They want to go to Georgetown parties. They want to be part of the crowd. They want to sometimes do other things which are inappropriate, not get caught. Judges never hold each other accountable. You know, there's a procedure, it's called judicial councils, to hold them accountable for ethical violations. These are the same people they eat lunch with, that they cavort with. Other judges make that decisions. You ask them to recuse themselves or disqualify themselves from a case, even though the statute says that if you present enough evidence in an affidavit, they have to do it automatically. They won't get off the case. And neither will the Supreme Court back up the law on that, because you know what? People could ask the Supreme Court justices to recuse themselves. They never do that. In fact, it was Roberts who said years ago in a report on the court, an annual report, that we are above reproach. We have ethics like you wouldn't believe because we've been confirmed by the Senate, so we can do no wrong. This is the same attitude and approach that our founding fathers confronted with the legal system of King George III. But it's even worse today. It's worse because we pretend in this country that we are holier than thou. We pretend that we have the most honest legal system in the world. We don't. We're a little better than third world countries. You know, what's ironic is this is one area that I agree with Tiger, Michael Tiger. You know, he wants to overthrow the country and turn it far left, okay? Marxist, capitalist. I got pictures of him with Fidel Castro's brother Ramon. I've got a letter that was a thank you note from Fidel Castro. This is the guy that's sitting on my bar disciplinary making a recommendation that I be suspended from the practice of law in D.C. in a case that was already dismissed in Florida and Pennsylvania 10 years ago. But, you know, the irony with that is that Tiger at least understands the real world, okay, is that these judges and jurors, they can be very politicized. And that's what we're dealing with today. So without a line of defense from the federal judges, the American people were left defenseless. Now, I'm trying to use peaceful and legal means to preserve the republic, to bring about change. I never advocate resorting to violence or physical use of force. But you know what? It's not going to be Larry Klayman that advocates that. But if this president is convicted, all hell is going to break loose. You're going to see right-wing militias in the streets battling it out with the socialists and communist leftists and anarchists like Antifa. And that's not good for this country. So it's going to destroy this country even more than it's already been destroyed. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our citizens' grand juries to bring about justice, to relieve the pressure on the system, to have the people rise up and bring about justice. And our hard-hitting lawsuits, because occasionally they come in front of a judge that actually will do something. Now, I'm trying to bring as many cases as I can in state court these days, because frankly, the federal courts are by and large worthless. So I'm going to the state courts because, particularly in Florida, they'll let cases go to a jury. And that's what we need. The American people need to make the decisions on these things, not these hack judges. So please support what we're doing, both in terms of Freedom Watch and our private lawsuits. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. I know I'm pumping that, but we're small. We're the mouse that roared. We don't have $110 million in net assets like Judicial Watch does, that mostly just gets documents but really doesn't use them for justice. We are trying to bring about justice, and I need your help. I need your help desperately. And I need your prayers. I need you to go back and look at the divine providence. God will bail us out if we open our hearts and we open our resources to defend ourselves. So I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, and I'll be doing these podcasts starting in about a month, or maybe less, with Radio America, 10 minutes a day. I want you to listen to them because education's important. That's what the Founding Fathers did. That's what caused them to fight a revolution and to create the greatest nation on earth, which is now being destroyed. So until then, God bless you, God bless your family, God bless America, and God save America in these dire times. Thank you for listening.